everyone. Hey, Turtle community. We have a special treat for you again today. We happen to have two special treats today. Earlier, we met with Lamia Gibson, and today we're meeting with Teresa Lau. I'm saying your name right? I know we've been saying it. See, I just triple checked, just, just because I always only say your first name most of the time. So Teresa is also a treat, also an OT, an original turtle, has been with us for 2 years. This is part of our Me First campaign. If you haven't plugged into it yet, go ahead and go to www.turtletank.co/me first. It's really a campaign about how sacrificing ourselves isn't actually serving anybody. And it actually kills our communities and kills the gifts that we bring to our communities. And so putting ourselves first is what creates world of radical love and freedom. Bringing our gifts forth to the world, our contributions from a fulfilled and full and desire-filled place. And if you want to know more about that, go ahead and read more about that campaign. So today we're focusing on Teresa's story, but we had a bunch of stories come through. So, the first story was EJ's. If you haven't caught up, go ahead and, catch up to all those stories as well. We had EJ, myself, India, who's part of our team, Aurora Levens Morales, who was an incredible artist and activist and writer and speaker. And we got the lovely Lamia Gibson earlier, and now we're topping this all off today with Teresa. So I'm going to say something informal about Teresa real briefly. Teresa's just been one of our core members. And I say this, because the core folks and who you've been seeing recently have also all been core people, have been instrumental in helping us formulate this work and shift in terms of the feedback and the way that they give feedback and the way that they, receive the work was so instrumental in how we're doing what we're doing, and how the transformations have happened in Turtle Tank. And so first, I want to just thank you, Teresa, for sticking through this work. And there's something specific about you that I want to highlight, which is, your commitment to your kind of self-investigation, is so specific and so unique, and appreciated. And just the way that you take in information and that you digest information is just outstanding, And I've seen this is just such massive transformation in the last couple of years, and you're already just this incredible human being, walked in with us, and now we're just going to this whole other level of kind of the inner space, work. And so your inner journey to me, as much as the outer journey is also incredible, but the inner journey was something that I was kind of drawn to and just impressed by, with you and how you think of things and how you formulate things and and the effort, and the work, that goes into that and how important it is for you. So that's something that, I just want to highlight and say, thank you for doing that work, for sticking through the Turtle Tank process, as challenging and rewarding as it's been on both fronts. And I want to introduce you formally as well. And I want to also thank EJ, who's with us today. EJ is the co-founder of Turtle Tank and the mother of Me First, the soul mother of Me First, soul, SOUL, not soul only. But I guess in a way, I'm not a mother. And so not in that way. But just want to thank you, EJ, for, leading this campaign, for formulating all of this, for inviting the interviewees, for all of that. So thank you for holding that space, EJ, for bringing this forth. So I'm another co-founder of Turtle Tank. My name is Samia, and you can see all that. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in, introduce Teresa, and then, start with our questions. And I hope more people join us. And that's where we are. All right, let me go do this. So Teresa, I'm going to read your bio. So I want to do it. People need to hear it. All right. So Teresa goes by Doctor. This is Dr. Teresa. Please. I love it. Teresa W. Lau is a queer woman of color and chiropractor with a passion for the beauty and richness life has to offer. I love that. Her work in practice at Vibrant Body Wellness is more liberation and body wisdom than rehab. Clients may come in with hip pain, but end up learning to connect with what's really stuck and move more freely than ever. Dr. T, as she is affectionately called, came to her healing work by way of a former career in software and a history of activism in communities of color and LGBTQ communities. Her love of quantum physics, began in college at MIT and has continued to shape her approach throughout her 13 years practicing in Berkeley. Vibrant Body Wellness was recently named Best Chiropractic Practice of the East Bay by the East Bay Express. Yay! We take a lot of pride in that. And Dr. Teresa was featured in the Special People to Know edition as the place to go for holistic health. She has seen thousands of lives transformed by our body's innate intelligence to know itself, heal itself, and create ever-expanding worlds of possibilities. Wow. Yeah. So the fabulous, the fantastic Dr. Teresa, Dr. T, Dr. Turtle. I love it. So Teresa, I'm just so, you're, I love how much breadth and diversity we have in each human being as in their own world, in Turtle Tank. So, and you're just another example of that breadth. I know we share some similar histories, you and I, and just in terms of like the divergent paths that we've taken.
Multiple chapters.
Right, different hats and lifetimes and all the ways in which we're investigating ourselves. So again, it's such a nice, mirror for me as well. So thank you. And thank you for being here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm excited. I've been watching all the turtle interviews and just, it just feels like this launch is super special because it feels like we're actually like sharing the magic of it with all of our stories. So yeah, I'm excited and it's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for being here, Teresa, and also just being part of our community and like the richness that you've brought to Turtle Tank and the Collective Incubator. I was curious if we could start with actually sharing like what brought you to Turtle Tank, like what made you say yes 2 years ago, and why did you stick around?
I mean, I stuck around because why would I ever leave? Like, the tank has been amazing, and anyone who is in my life just has heard about Turtle Tank pretty much every time they see me, because it's just such a loving and transformative program and environment, community. For me, how I found you all to begin with was a friend had posted just on Facebook one of the early videos that you had put out a couple years ago, and it was something about radical entrepreneurship or radical economy. And I at the time I had been in business for 11 years, and it was hard. It was lonely and hard. And a lot of other turtles have. We've all talked about this on the calls and things, just about what it is to be just deeply committed to justice and social movements and be participating, like be in a capitalist business, like be in a for-profit enterprise. And, I've had different experiences over the years of people in communities, like identity-based communities or community organizing kind of spaces where, as soon as I show up with my sort of for-profit enterprise, no matter what my commitment is, it's just always a little bit, there's some dissonance. Mm-hmm. And so to hear about this program was just like, whoa, there's other people. Not that I didn't know there were other people, but just the idea of being able to connect and reach out with and meet other people who have this in their heart and in their practice I was like, what is that? Let me listen. And the two of you are just amazing, like amazing people, but also just leaders and coaches, and your own stories and how generous you are with them was really what connected me to saying I have to give this a try, even though I've done a bunch of programs before and signed up for all these different things over the years. I just was like, there's no question, I have to give this a go, and it's just been an amazing ride ever since.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm glad you said yes. And I'm curious because I know what drew you to Turtle Tank was like wanting support with your business, was this piece around like radical economics and like radical entrepreneurship. And then I'm sure when you stepped in the tank and we were like talking about energy drains and inner strategy, like there may have been a moment of like, wait a second, when are we going to get to the business stuff? And yeah, I'm curious about how, like, working with Turtle Tank, how has that supported you with this practice of actually putting yourself first and centering yourself in your business and how you approach your work?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that has been the turtle journey since the beginning. Is where am I in all of this? And I think, I mean, so many tears on those calls, but definitely one watershed, literally watershed moment on one of those calls for me was just recognizing how much I had invested in this business and in this practice, you know, because I left my career and I went to school because I had experienced all this personal, like Sammy was kind of referencing in the beginning, all this personal growth and development and healing for myself and the communities of people that I cared about and who I was, you know, working with to support and volunteering and all these things in terms of community organizing. Like I was just watching folks burn out in the nonprofit industrial complex, but also just in terms of like being us, like being us people. And what I had been experiencing myself was just seemed so different and new. I felt like I'm onto something, and I wanted to bring that into these communities and into these spaces that I cared about. And that's actually what I went to school to do this for. And so in some ways, I guess, all the way back then, like 15, 16 years ago, it was for me, but it wasn't for me. And to be in those early Turtle Tank conversations, just coming to realize that I had never even really recognized myself for how much effort and how much sacrifice and how much just work I had been putting into this practice, still holding that intention over such a long period of time. That was really like a big watershed moment for me to start to locate myself inside of this enterprise, inside of this big project that I had been, engaging in. I thought that I knew where I was in it. But what I realized in this whole process with Turtle Tank and also I love this Me First campaign. I've been having my own like next level Me First kind of thing, listening to people's interviews. What I realized is that it's not actually good enough to just like carve out a little space for myself or get into, which was what was happening by the time I joined Turtle Tank, get into this kind of like negotiating or even like oppositional relationship between me and this business and this practice. It was like I needed to take something away from that in order to give to myself. It's not good enough to do that stuff. It's actually what I'm coming into now is like, I need to actually shine. I need to actually do what it needs to keep uncovering what it is that's true in me, because that's actually what ripples out. And I know, I've heard people say that over and over and over again, and I know in my head it's true, but just this work and this process with Turtle Tank has been so loving, and such a grounded and embodied way of coming to that knowing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Are you going to say something, Sonia? Go ahead.
Did you want to say something first?
Go ahead. No.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I love how you set that up. I love how you frame that. I think that's one thing I just really appreciate about you, how you frame things, because you have this kind of systems mind, and that's exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the like anchoring the radical purpose and anchoring in Me First. Is that it's just like things come out and overflow and change the very fabric and DNA of the work, rather than we're set up against something, right? Or against the world or against the business. Or it's like there's two things, and it's like either or, and how do I create space, how to control this stuff versus like, how do I change the structure so that I'm embedded in it in such an organic and like in flow with it, and in relationship with it where it grows out of me and like you said, you're shining, you know, and things are become in a way effortless in that sense, right? Obviously there's always challenges, always work, you know, but it's a different kind of work. And I, you know, draw the opposition, you know, the not the opposition, but the difference between struggle and challenge, right? I don't want to struggle, but there's always going to be challenge, you know. And so the more you step into that and kind of grow out from that place, the less there's struggle, and the, you know, and then we can deal with the challenges as they come. But there's this kind of idea of flow and anchor, you know, where it is coming out of you, you know, rather than like, you know, you're trying to fit yourself in it, you know, this thing that you created. And it's totally normal to continue to investigate that question over and as you see with us, you know, our transformation over and over again, you know. And I think we were on the call yesterday talking about this, you know, just it's normal to feel like we don't want to do certain things anymore. We don't feel like, okay, you know, or we feel like they're taking over our lives in a certain kind of way. And so how do we come back? And that coming back is what transforms the work, right? Over and over again. It's like that shedding, and you know. So I've been thinking about that, you know, and how you frame that. But EJ, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I love that phrase of like shining, like, oh, I shine, like me first is about me shining so that I can do my work out in the world. And I guess I have a two-part follow-up question to that. One, like, because I think it's so true what you said about like, yeah, that's something we've all heard about, the oxygen mask in the plane and putting it on first. Like, we've all heard that stuff, but then actually embodying it and doing it is a whole nother story. So I'm curious, one, what do you think? I mean, I'm sure there are like multiple steps to this process, but maybe like what's one key thing that helped you make that shift between knowing this and then actually living it and doing it and practicing, you know, putting yourself first or doing things that are centered around you shining? And then I guess the next question connected to that is, once you started doing that, focusing on your shining, what are the things that started to change in your life and in your business?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's definitely a process. Like it wasn't like a one moment, things kind of shifted. But when something about the way you asked the question, the response that came to mind was like, I think the thing that helped me shift into like actually living that way was how miserable I was. Like the whole first year of Turtle Tank, like the folks that were in the group together, it really felt like such a cohesive community of folks who were just trying to figure something out, and somehow all of our little wiggles were helping each other with the pieces. So I think for me, it was like having the space to actually let myself feel how unhappy I was, because it's really hard to feel that way when you need to get a lot of stuff done, or when, you know, the practice is me and it depends on me. And so I got to show up. And I just remember having all these metaphors around like the enterprise or the business being like a little baby and not, you know, trying to ask something that's so little or new to sort of behave as if it's mature. But then for me, in my particular situation, it was like, here I have this like semi-mature thing and I don't really want to have anything to do with it, but it's still dependent on me. So like, I'm not a mom myself, but it's kind of like, how do you let yourself feel all the frustration and hopelessness and all that stuff while still like being really tending to this thing that's a living thing, and that
Teenager.
tension.
Exactly.
So I think it was actually letting myself feel all those things, which I you know, it's too scary without the kind of community and container that Turtle Take has really created, and continues to evolve, you know, to meet a lot of different people's needs. So I just, yeah, I'm just super grateful to the both of you for not just for sure the community that you've kind of magnetized and drawn to all of us, but also like how clear you both are in like the value of us as queer radical people, engaged in economy, like Lemmy was saying, the engaged economy. I was like, oh, I love these little phrases that Charles come up with. Yeah, just the value of us, I think, was the kind of counterpoint to letting myself feel the low, was also like really getting that there's this value, and that being the thing that I kind of kept cycling back through in all of that shedding. I think I remember the second part of the question, but
yeah. No, I mean, I love what you just said about the community and how, you know, like what a key difference that made in one, being able to give you permission to just like sink in and feel what you're feeling. And then also not feel alone in that, like to have aspects of your experience be mirrored with other people and just be like, okay, we're all in this together, struggling, trying to figure it out. And yeah, because I think that's something that gets left out a lot, you know, in the whole self-help, self-care, like just this focus on self and not enough on the community or the ecosystem that allows that kind of like self-exploration and sitting with ourselves in the hard places. So thank you for naming that. So the second part of the question is like, through this process of sitting with and being able to feel and admit like how miserable you were with how things were, you know, what were some of the things that shifted with this like newer commitment to like your shining and rearranging your world to support that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was being able to see, not just place myself in the enterprise, but also distinguish myself from the practice and the work. It was like, even though I knew in my head that my value was not linked to what was happening with the practice, it was like it took actually having this more embodied me first place that to be able to, it's like I got to be able to interact with the practice as that thing and not as like myself. Like if this part of the way I did some specific operational part of the business wasn't working super well, that wasn't a reflection of like me and my value. That was like something that I needed either help with or just to take a different perspective on and address. And so I think that separation was the big thing that helped me keep on at that. And then, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that, and also the shift in the ways that you all were supporting those of us that were in like a day-to-day business. That was just huge and instrumental, and all the tools around the radical role and a purpose and being able to just actually look at these things as they were and not wrapped up in, you know, my own sort of feeling of failure or success. Yeah.
That's great.
It's been amazing. You both are amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
It reminds me of what Aurora said about, you know, what we teach. She's like, you know, I learned that when I set a goal and I don't meet the goal and I don't meet the goal, there's something wrong with the goal.
Not wrong with me.
Right? Right. And then it kind of like mirrors that a little bit with what you're saying now is when we start to look, when we separate, I love that you talked about that, like the separating ourselves out of from the work. Because really we have to be the work. And that's why we're built that way with Turtle Tank, that we're focused on the entrepreneur, not the enterprise. Right. Because you can do anything. And the truth is you can, right? You, and especially our OTs, like they're brilliant, you know, they're just spread across the board. They could be anything, you know? But the, you know, being able to, so not marrying ourselves to the work in that way is what allows us to then be able to look at it as a system and be able to kind of work with it rather than like take, as you say, EJ, maybe you can speak to this, you know, we see things as character flaws or as personal flaws or as personal, like, you know, failures, rather than like, wait a minute, goal setting doesn't even work that way. You know, there's a process to this work that we don't even know sometimes, and conventional business spaces don't even talk about. You know, I saw an article recently, I thought of you, Teresa, about, I think I posted it, how design thinking is like really extremely conservative or something. Anyway, obviously there's a lot of thought around that, but it was a Harvard Business Review piece, and I thought it was actually interesting because it was like when I first came across design thinking, I mean I thought it was great, but I thought it was pretty conventional. I thought it was pretty typical. Okay, yeah, we're designing around the human experience. It's like we've been doing that as people of color since we I don't know. We've been alive for centuries and thousands of years, and so there's something about I know where I'm going with this, but the lack of understanding of the natural systems at play, with the business. And so when you kind of separate out and you put the pressure on the system, as I always say, rather than on yourself, then you're like, oh, okay, I can change this. I made this, It's like, we can shift things around, and I have to be a whole person to be able to do that, So all of those kind of dynamics are at play. I don't know, EJ, if you want to say something about that, this whole like, faulting ourselves, and as people, as marginalized folks, people of color, as queer people of color, whatever, we're taught that everything that happens is our fault, and we have to like, so we're married to these things in these ways, and we take these things on because that's part of how the system is built, to keep us in a certain kind of way, So I don't know, EJ, do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, and nothing to add that you haven't already shared. But I think that, I also really appreciated you naming that separation, because I feel like that is part of like how we get conditioned to think, especially as marginalized folks, of like, you're already less than, you need to work to prove your worth. Actually, if you're not working and providing what I think is valuable, you're not valuable.
Right.
And so we just naturally internalize that. And like, we do see our value as like, what can I produce? What can I, how well is my practice doing? That's a reflection of how well I'm doing. And so really like that separation is like really an act of like resistance, and an act of like reclaiming ourselves, and then being able to sit in our inherent value, like that isn't based on what we do, that's just based on who we are. And so I'm curious, like you mentioned the radical purpose exercise. And to me, like that's what that exercise really connected me to, is like at my core, if I do nothing and I'm just sitting there, like what's the value that I'm bringing to the space, to my community, to the world? And I'm curious if you had a similar experience with the radical purpose exercise, if you could talk a little bit more about what that opened up for you or what that shifted for you.
Yeah, I think it really, again, your question about like, what was the thing that kind of pulled me into a more embodied experience of this? I think the radical role process and the group of turtles, working through it together was like, that was a big piece of getting more embodied in it. It was like, I could theoretically, I could write down like big visions all day long, but to actually call out like, what is the purpose? Exactly what you just said. Like, if I'm not doing anything, like what is the value, or what is my my purpose? And the process for me was like actually getting me to bring all of me, and not just the performative parts of me, or not just the parts that were really that I had put so much attention and focus on to build the business over these many years. There were all these other parts of me that I had just put aside. Not even, definitely not super consciously, but also not even because I thought that I couldn't do those things. It just like went off my radar. And so the radical purpose process just, again, kind of opened it all up to let me remember. And then the fact that the way you all are teaching these tools is so everything kind of overlaps on top of each other. I feel like now when I think about, a project that I want to try in the office, it somehow woven into that underlying purpose. And it's super powerful. It's like, I feel like I'm brand new at this wild vehicle that I have not really had a lot of experience working, but I'm like, what does this do? Like, what happens if I, lean into this side of me or that side of me? So it's cool. Yeah, it's amazing. And then all the things you're saying about purpose and inherent value and how we're conditioned and all that stuff. Like I am just remembering all these different turtles kind of talking about capitalism and talking about value and the greatest thing to me about this process with Turtle Tank so far has been that we talk about these things and then people are using what we've come to together in their enterprises. You know, like I'm just like witnessing all these folks change the reality of what their lives are and what their work is, as opposed, you know, contrasted with like, you know, having sort of like, not that there's not value in expressing like what's hard, but just not having kind of conversations that are sort of all about how challenging things are or how unfair something is or isn't as far as like our conditioning and the society that we live in, and then having that kind of like be over and then happen again at another time. The forward, not linear, but forward kind of progression with folks in Turtle Tank is just, it's so amazing. And then both of you have such a conviction in our value, not in spite of being marginalized and all the oppressions, but basically like whatever we're coming up with is sorely needed, is the thing that's sorely needed, and is only going to come through when we are each of us shining and finding our way. Like that's just such a clear truth that we're doing together. It's really, really life-giving.
Yeah.
Mentoring. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love how you strung that together. That was going to be my next question about like, okay, what's the connection between Me First, your radical purpose, and creating a world that's like rooted in love and freedom? And you just spoke to all of that, you know, really beautifully. So thank you. Yeah.
I mean, this work with Turtle Tank is really healing work. I've said that to each of you multiple times. Like from the beginning, I was like, oh, you're not talking about like marketing strategy. You're talking about healing ourselves so that we can show up in the world and the world can heal when we are doing that.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
I said, Teresa was one of the first people that was like, I'm on to you all. I don't know what I'm really doing here. I think the OT started to, this is not entrepreneurship. But I think, and there's something worth saying about that in the sense that, EJ, were you going to say something? I don't know.
Go ahead.
I think what's really significant here, and this is a message that's been coming to me again and again, is, you know, I'm interested in like, and I was just talking to EJ about this right before we got on this call. I was like, you know what I really, really want, and I'm just coming into like, you know, as we launched this Me First campaign, it has been a ritual for us. Also, it's a ritual, you know, and we have to step up to our next level of Me First. And so everything we are doing with our folks, we do with us, you know, and then we keep going, you know, to the deeper level of what it is that we need to do. And so for me, it's been like, okay, you know, my investment in the development of human potential, you know, and with that, you can do anything. You know, you can be a farmer, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a farmer and an entrepreneur, you can do whatever you want, you know, but the commitment to our lives and our value and our potential and the manifestation of our potential as the fullest potential that we're here to do, you know, to manifest is something that's deeply important to me, and really probably why I'm here, you know, as a person. And so, you know, to hear you talk about this, and I think your investment in that beyond, you know, there's the people who were here to just, you know, just serve, or just, you know, like, I just want to start an enterprise, and you know, that kind of stuff is short-lived, you know, because the truth is most projects don't make it. We know that, right? You know, as strategists, coaches, you know, I'm just like, trust me, for the people that first walk in, like, most likely what you're walking in with isn't going to be what it looks like 1 year. You may not even be doing this thing in 1 year, you know, for most folks, you know, and it takes several tries and several shifts and turns and all of that stuff. So the investment really is in us and in our potential and ability to manifest and create. right? And so that's what Turtle Tank is transforming into. And you all were already there when you walked in. And so it's just been this kind of reverberating feedback and mirroring, we're like, oh yeah, that is what we're doing. That is what we're doing. Oh my goodness, so there's, being able to come back to that. And, that was always my passion and my love, personally. And I know EJ's as well, is the healing and the development, and to note one more thing, which is entrepreneurship as a field is nascent. It's very recent in terms of its study. There isn't really a science of entrepreneurship. Like there is a management science, science of management. It's easy to sit there and look at large companies and see how we can figure out how they work and but when it comes to starting something and sustaining something at the levels that we're doing it, there really isn't. There's very recent, in the last maybe like 5 to 7 years, stuff coming up, and so what they're discovering now is again and again, a lot of what makes people successful is their ability to their interpersonal, skills, their relationships to themselves, their relationships to their power and their value, and all those things that are intangible and very hard to kind of achieve through. We're not going to talk about financials. We're not going to talk about marketing. And I always say this to folks. I'm going to stop talking, but and you can have the best marketing campaign ever, and if you don't believe in yourself and there isn't inherent value in what you're providing with you and with it, and it's flowing out of it, it's going to be short-lived and it's not going to be successful. No matter how, no matter what strategies you use, no matter how, it'll consume you, even if it succeeds. Right. And so so what is really success and all of that stuff, and so maybe that's a question, EJ, we can segue into, what is a successful life for you, Teresa, and just having said everything that I just said now, is I'm working on this separation just the same as you. In fact, EJ and I were looking at one of my astrology things, and it literally said that, like, I have to learn how to separate my value from my work, and that's why the focus on love for me is just like, okay, oh my goodness, we're here to do all these things, but at the end of the day, we just want love, it's a basic thing. So Teresa, what's your definition of success?
Oh boy. I think my definition of success is a work in progress right now. I think that the reason it's a work in progress is because the courage that I need to actually say like what success is for me, that's what I'm building right now. After using Turtle Tank, I'm like, oh, that shine piece, that felt like really far away a couple years ago. And now it feels like, oh, that's what this is about. And then when you ask me like, what is success? I think it has a lot to do with that shining, actually being courageous enough to show up as I am, and for that not to be necessarily a set thing, but that keeps evolving. And I don't remember which interview it was, but something that you all said something about, you often say things about sort of like allowing yourself to fail, or allowing like that goal that, something wrong with the goal. It's like, there's so many layers to the goal not being right, and then like what that means about me or what I had wanted. And I think allowing all those things to shift and change. And like my purpose is really about the richness and the space between us, I think, which is, I'm still kind of evolving it. I'm still trying to figure it out for myself, but I know that it has to do with relationship, either internally or externally. And for me, relationship is like where all the risk is. It's like, because you can't control that. Whatever the thing is you're in a relationship with, you can't control it. So it's like all this self questioning and personal development and stuff is like really just so that I can stand here whole and be in relationship to something else, even if it's another aspect of myself. And so I guess that's my sort of evolving definition around success, is that fullness, that feeling of like not just no matter what happens, I'll be okay, but like no matter what happens, I'll like I won't hide away any parts of myself.
Yeah.
Um, and what that looks like, I don't like on the outside. I don't exactly know just yet. I know that in my practice, this process has really opened up. Like business has increased. My play and exploration around what it is that I'm offering in the practice is also like changing and increasing. And it's just me and my office coordinator, and they're amazing and awesome. And they just actually gave me a reflection a couple weeks ago of really appreciating witnessing me go through this turtle tank process, and how much has changed in just what they're observing as far as like how I am being in the office. And it really is like the difference between feeling totally burdened, you know, and like not enough time or energy or whatever it is, to feeling like um, there's so much possibility and potential. And that's like I definitely run on potential also.
Yeah.
Like big juicing fuel for me is like
Yeah.
what's possible for the world, and also like you know in the more mundane spaces. So yeah, that's been the big change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that sounds huge. You're like, that's just been the change. Yeah. I mean, I love that idea too of just like, you know, not only like no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, but like no matter what happens, I'm going to shine. Like, even if I fail, I'm going to shine. Even if I create the wrong goal, I'm going to shine, you know, and like really like stepping and living into that like more and more fully. And so it's great to hear like the ripple effects of that, like just that like mind shift and that shift in relationship, and how it's like trickling out in like not only who you're being, but because of who you're being, who's coming, you know, to your business, and like how you're feeling about your work, and like you being able to play and like experiment with that burden taken off of like getting it right or getting it perfect, or you know, having this business be this reflection of who you think you need to be, like. And so yeah, that's really powerful.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Did you want to say something else, Teresa? Sound like
I'm just sitting in this moment of like turtle magic, because every time there's these conversations with you two, whether it's like a big group or a smaller group, is like I just got this like clarity about this process that I'm on personally, being being at the heart of what it is that is next for the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just got it. Yeah, like it's actually, because what I'm saying that I'm in this process of for myself is actually what I want for all my clients.
Yes.
It's what I want for my clients. And so you know, we talk in Turtle Tank a lot about leadership, and it's like, and you two just do such an amazing job of walking your talk and modeling. And I just got it that this process is the way for me to actually expand on what I'm doing in the practice and actually deliver the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
The people that I work with. So yeah, it's just like the moment of turtle magic for sure.
Yeah.
Right now.
I know. I got the goosebumps with that. It's just like another me first moment, you know, of like so many. And I was guilty of this too. Like, I want to help other people and I want to teach other people how to do this stuff. And it's like, wait, me first, you know, like I need to go through it. I need to hold myself through it, you know. And yeah, just remembering that layer. I mean, even this process for us, Samia, with this launch and this message, it was like we thought we knew what Me First was about before the launch, and then going through the launch, it was like a whole nother like layer of like discovering and uncovering and shedding and build and rebuilding. And so I'm excited for you and like what's next for you in your practice. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. See what comes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to, do you want to say anything before we close out, Samia?
I just thinking about, this is exactly like what how you experienced Teresa today, like on this call, is exactly like what I love about you. It's just like, it's so quick, the internalization of the information and like the epiphany and like, that it just kind of moves with you, and just, yeah, there's magic in the core, with us. And I love that, and I want everybody to witness that magic, and it's not always pretty,
Mm-hmm.
I think you spoke to that first year. I remember you called the watershed, there was a lot of shedding, and tell me, I mean, you didn't have to tell me, like EJ was just speaking to our, like, me first experience. And we shed a lot in this last, couple of months, EJ and myself and the team, and our, our respective relationships and how they need to be set up and how, all of that stuff. And so, a lot of stuff that we're not going to talk about, that's really intimate, and some stuff that, we will share eventually, but I think that we are in these transformations together, and there's a ripple back and forth, between you and us, and all of that stuff, and so I'm just really enjoying the brilliance of this and the genius of this community, and like I said, every time you say something, I'm like, whoa, and it sparks me. So I had similar moments where I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. Oh yeah, da, 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 just that kind of generative stuff, that's coming up, and the creative stuff, and it's just the flow of this work and of this community, and we owe it to you, just as much, in this process. So thank you so much, Teresa, for being a part of this, for your energy and your time that you could have put anywhere else, but you chose to put with us and with this process and with this work, and I'm so incredibly proud of like all of the external and internal accomplishments, that you've kind of, the milestones that you've hit in the last couple of years, and some of the ones that were initially like invisible, to the naked eye, that we know. So I'm just an honor. Thank you so much for sharing in that journey with us and being with us, and we do our best, but so thank you again. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Totally grateful for both of you. You're each like just amazing superstars. I just feel so lucky to have found you, like, before I was 80.
We feel the same way about you, Teresa. Just really grateful to have your presence in our lives and our community. So thank you. Yeah.
OT.
I wanted to OT, original turtle. So Teresa, I know people are going to be intrigued about your work and what you do. And could you let people know like what you have going on and where they can find you online?
Sure. I have you can sign up for my newsletter on the website, which is vibrantbodywellness.com. There's a Facebook page too. You can message me there. And as far as things coming up, we're doing a half-day intensive on December 9th. Probably not totally suited for a brand new person, but that's the energy that we're generating, is doing a half-day intensive where folks get a chance to reconnect kind of back to basics, reconnect with their energy, their body, their breath. I'm super looking forward to it. And in the new year, I'm going to be launching some kind of like class series and things like that. So definitely get on the newsletter and you'll find out about it.
Very cool. Great.
Woo.
I know, so many changes happening too for you, I think, in the next year. That's like that. I always say to people, that's the third year is when things start to like really turn, that's what we call it, transform, create, and turtle tank, that third process, that third phase. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to hearing you talk about your next year around this time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Me too.
Yeah, all it's true. When we first started talking, you all were saying like this is a years-long process, and I don't know, a year seems like a long time, but oh my gosh, there's so much in the year, each one. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for everything that you shared. And I want to invite people who are watching us live now or people who are watching the replay, like, please leave a comment. Let us know, like, what insight, what gem that Teresa dropped that really struck you. Anything that you want to add to the conversation, feel free to do that. We love reading those. And yeah, thank you for being here. We're going to be back with another Me First story next Tuesday, and at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And we'll be back with another original turtle with their story of moving through this work of recentering themselves in their work and their lives and the things that they notice through that process.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Teresa. Take good care.